So welcome to a new week of our online learning. And this week, we are going to kind of move forward from greatest common factor, and we're going to actually translate it into what we've really been trying to progress into this whole time, and that is factoring trinomials. And so this is something that is a little bit difficult. So we are going to break it down and kind of do it piece by piece these first couple of days. So I'm not going to try to teach you everything at once. It is something that we'd probably be able to do in class. But since we are online and we're only trying to take up about 30 minutes, we're going to break it down piece by piece. But the gist of this is we are basically trying to take standard form down here in the left, which is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, and factor it into factored form, or transform standard form into factored form. And so it just makes sense that if we're trying to go to factored form, we're going to do that through factoring. And so this is really how you go from standard form into factored form. This is everything. We're not going to focus on all this. However, I do recommend that you go ahead and pause the video right now. And as you do pause the video, go ahead and write all of this out. Put it on one sheet of paper, because this is how you're going to set up every single one. Make sure you list out all the steps and kind of refer back to them as we go through them. However, I do have it highlighted over here that the biggest focus of today is going to be on what I like to refer to, and what everybody in the math department likes to refer to, as the big X. And it's the first step that we're going to have to set up in order to factor these problems. So we're going to focus on not really worried about step 1 today, but we are going to be worried about step 2, step 3, and step 4. So how this is really going to work is, if we look at step 2, rewrite in standard form, well, it's already in standard form, and we have that right there, is x squared plus 3x plus 2. So step 2's checked. Then step 3 is to multiply ax squared times c. Now, we have it right here. We have ax squared is your first term, and c is your last term. Now, that is what we're going to do to get the top of our x, which is right down here, the top of our x every single time. So you're going to take your first term, which is x squared, and multiply it by c, which is your last term, which is 2. So we have x squared times 2, which is going to give us 2x squared. And then we're going to get the bottom of the x. And so the bottom of the x is literally just your bx. So whatever the middle term is what's going to go in the bottom, which is 3x for this one. Now, the key part of the big X is that you're trying to find factors that will multiply to give you the top, but add, that's somewhat of an addition sign. Oh gosh, it's a little harder than you think. But we'll add to give you the bottom. And so that's the key part of that big A. So if you want to pause, make sure you have all that wrote out. Please do so. So now we got to figure out, well, what will multiply to give us 2, but will add to give us 3. So going back to how we find the factors, what I like to do is do 2 and create your tree. Well, this case, we only have 1 and 2. And so 1 and 2 will multiply to give me 2, and 1 and 2 will add to give me 3. So therefore, our factors are going to be 1x and 2x. So for today, that is all we're going to do. We will transition and we'll come back to filling in the box and everything else later. But our key focus today is just going to be on that x. So now, what that looks like for you if you're just given a problem, well, what I would do is the first thing is I would go ahead and I would draw me out an x. Now, we got to remember that the top of our x is going to be ax squared, which is the first term, times c, which is the last term. So you're going to have 40 m squared on top. And then the bottom of the x is your bx, which is just the negative 14m. Now, we got to find the factors of 40 that will multiply to give me 40, but add to give me negative 14. And so you're saying, well, how is it going to add to give you negative 14? We'll dive into that in just a second. But at this point, we need to find the factors of 40. So if we have 1 and 40, will give me 40. Well, 2 and 20 will give me 40. 3 and 3 will not go into 40 evenly. So therefore, skip it. 4 and 10. 5 and 8. 6 will not go into it evenly. 7 will not go into it evenly. So then we get back to 8. And so then we have those repeating numbers. So now we have 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, and 5 and 8. And those are our factors of 40. So we have to see which one of these will add to give us negative 14. Because we all know that they're going to all multiply to give us 40. So this is the tricky part. And I'm actually going to go to the next slide for this. Is figuring out the positives and the negatives. So if our C is positive, that and our B is positive, that means both factors got to be positive. But if our C is positive and our B is negative, that means that both factors have to be negative. So if we go back to this problem, we will notice that our C, which is 40, is positive and our B is negative. So what that tells me is that both our factors have to be negative. So now we can look at this and say, well, which pair of numbers will add up to give me negative 14? Well, negative 1 plus negative 40 at the top is going to give us negative 41. So that's out. Negative 2 and negative 20 will give me negative 22. So that's out. Negative 4 and negative 10 will give me negative 14. And so therefore that is our factors. So we have negative 4m and negative 10m. And so those are our factors, and this would be your answer. Now, your assignment for today is going to be on Delta Math. I would recommend you go ahead and pausing this video, and if you want to go ahead and try your X. Now, all your problems on Delta Math are going to go ahead and start out with your top number. So in this one, it's going to be negative 12m. Oh my gosh. Negative 12m squared. And then your bottom is going to be negative m, which we really know is just negative 1m. So now we have to figure out our factors of 12. We got 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Now, if we go back to our chart, our C is negative and our B is negative. So if our C is negative and our B is negative, Well, that tells me that my bigger factor in each pair will be negative. So that means that the negative is going to go with the bigger number because we want to have a remainder of a negative. So that tells us that our bigger number is going to have to be a negative when it's added together. So which one of these will add up to -1? Well, 1 and -12 is going to give me -11. So that's out. 2 and -6 is going to give me -4. So it's out. But 3 and -4 is going to give me that -1 that we're looking for. So therefore, my factors are going to be 3m and -4m. Now, when it comes to your Delta Math assignment today, since we are just focusing on the x, it's going to go ahead and give you the x and the top numbers. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to have the top and you're going to have the bottom. So all you're going to be focused on with your assignment today on Delta Math is just figuring out your factors and just filling in your big X. So good luck. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out on me on email. I know this is a long video, but as we progress into factoring, this is something that is a little bit difficult. So it is going to kind of take a lot of focus and good notes, and just bear with me as we get through this week. I hope everybody is staying safe and they're doing well. Thank you.